Hey everyone, it's Synth Designer back again with another video. Today we're continuing our series on Chillwave Essentials. If you haven't checked out the other videos, please go ahead and do so. There's lots of cool tips if you're a huge Chillwave fan. And even if you're kind of a lo-fi type of fan, there's a lot of great tips in there as well for lo-fi music. But today I'm going to talk about a few important processing tips for Chillwave music. A lot of Chillwave music uses these techniques, and I think this will really help out anybody who's trying to get into the Chillwave game, essentially. So the three techniques I'll say right from the beginning are involving just plain old EQ, detunement through kind of different methods. I'm going to be using a free plugin called Vinyl. It acts as a great kind of detuner. You'll notice there's a lot of different types of similar plugins, paid and not paid. I'm going to use a free one today just to keep it simple. And then the last processing technique is kind of a washed out sound. It's kind of a generic term here. I'll show you what I mean later in the video. It's really just involving a lot of reverb. So it kind of just creates a sound that is very popular in Chillwave. So we're going to start here by listening into just this opening, and I'm going to show you how I used some of these techniques right from the bat. So let's start with pattern 1 here. I have the song that I started, and here's the opening. So as you can hear, it's kind of that bouncy kind of chord progression here that continues up and through the intro. I introduced some sub bass here, but this is not really the point. I really want to get into the first part of it, and that's the EQ. In almost all aspects of Chillwave, the EQ cuts out a lot of high frequencies, especially in the beginning here. I wanted to introduce this synth very slowly, and as you'll notice, I'm using all diva here. This song is not complete by any means. A lot of processing left, but I did want to show you how I EQ some of these synths. So I'm going to start with just pattern 1. Let's move on to that. And let's take a look at the mix here. That's synth 1 here. Right now, I do have a couple of things I want to mention, but let's start with the EQ. As you'll notice, a lot of the highs are taken out here, and let's take a look at through the automation. So right about here, you'll notice that a lot of the lows are taken out, but I play around a little bit with the frequencies as well through Diva itself, so I do open up the cutoff through Diva. But in terms of my mix, I have it set here completely and static. So let's take a look at it maybe halfway through and take a look at how it changes. But you'll notice that the actual high filter does not change. So even though the EQ there, you could see that it wasn't really reaching that point, and that's a lot to do with the frequency in Diva. The cutoff filter is usually a really important part of it. You do want to low pass some of these just because once you get really, really high in the frequency spectrum, it's going to be very kind of harsh, and that's not what we want in Chillwave. We want really chill sounds. Let's just play this starting here again, and then I'll open up the filter a little bit more. So this is attached to Diva's cutoff, and then we're going to see how it opens up too much, I would say. I'm also maybe going to turn down the mix a little bit just because it's going to get too harsh and too loud. So you could open it up that much, but typically you won't see that much. And the other aspect is we can open up the parametric EQ because right now it's still cutting it off. Let's just take a look. So there are aspects like in very short bursts where you might hear the cutoff frequency get to that in a main synth, but a lot of the times they are cut off quite a bit because they want to get rid of those upper frequencies. So let's undo those changes, or let's A/B it. Let's take a listen one more time. And now let's listen to it again with the proper, what you could call the proper filtering. So that's pretty common in a lot of synths. And you'll notice that the same thing happens in a lot of melody sections as well. This is by no means a hard and fast rule, but this is pretty common in a lot of Chillwave, whether you're doing it through your mix bus or whether you're doing it through the actual synth itself. A lot of those higher frequencies are cut off. Now I have this other section here with a basic ARP, and I do a very similar thing with the EQ. I actually cut off the EQ here, and I just wanted to give you another example. A huge cutoff here, both high and low, because I don't want those upper frequencies. Let's hear how it all sounds together. Right? Now, if I were to open this up a lot more, now that might work in certain parts of the song, but throughout most of it, I don't want that harsh frequency. I may change my mind as I mix this further, but I kind of wanted less of those higher frequencies for now. So the second aspect you may have heard as this kind of opens up, this first synth, is the mix level of vinyl to detune it a little bit. And I actually do it quite a bit here in short bursts. Let's just listen to how this sounds. Pay close attention to the first synth and how vinyl comes in here. As you can see, it's automated, so right now it's not doing anything. And for a lot of the song, I don't, but a lot of synthwave music has these little bursts where all of a sudden it gets really, really detuned. And you'll notice that in this intro. So pay attention to the detunement aspects. So you can hear how it's coming in a little bit at a time, and then it hits this like crescendo of detunement, and then I take it right away. If we were to listen to it without that detunement, it would be a little bit more bland. It's still, I love the actual synth here, but you wouldn't have the same effect, I don't think. Let's pick it up from here. Yeah, so it has that difference to it. So remember, you could either use this in a really sustained manner, or you can take it on and off in different sections of the song, and that's what I was doing here. Then one more little processing tip. I have a second synth here, Let's just play it on its own and listen to what it sounds like. So you can hear it's very, very washed out, and that's the third tip I want to give you for processing. Give it a nice washed out big sound to complement the different sounds of your song. So this washed out kind of sound can really add some atmosphere, but it's not meant to be the focal point, and that's not what it is here. This is a second synth really meant to copy or complement the first synth. So I actually have Kickstart 2 here to give that sidechain effect, but the biggest thing is I have a lot of reverb on it. You'll notice Synth 2 is actually attached to, I have it sidechained into its own dedicated reverb and delay. And if I were to A/B it for you, it's going to make a big difference. So adding that delay and reverb really gives you that washed out kind of atmosphere to it. Why don't we play it all together, and then you can hear how it comes in here in 2 bars, and then you're going to notice kind of added atmosphere as well. And you can hear that long sustain at the end because of the reverb and delay. So these are really just some basic ways to process chillwave music and to give you the proper vibe. You got the detunement that gives it that special sound that is common in so many chillwave songs. All of a sudden it kind of cuts in with something that's really, really detuned, or sometimes it's more sustained and it's almost out of key sounding type of thing. The other thing that we did at the beginning was the EQs. EQing out some of those highs is really going to give you a more chill and mellow sound. Sometimes you're going to need some of those harsher upper frequencies, depending kind of what you're doing, what kind of styles you're doing. But for a lot of songs, you'll notice a lot of the highs are taking out. Then lastly, you want some washed out sound in your tracks. In this case, I just have a second synth complementing it, but often here you'll hear it in drones in different ways. This is just one instance of kind of making a washed out sound through reverb and delay. It adds sustainment and it adds kind of ambience to the song. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you want to see anything about Chillwave in particular that I could break down. And probably in the future, you'll see once the song is complete, I'll do a full breakdown of the processing behind it. So I'll see you next time.